In the early hours of August 8, 1963, a quiet stretch of the English countryside became the stage for one of the most audacious crimes in modern history. A crime so bold, so unexpected, that it would permanently change how money was transported across Britain. This was the Great Train Robbery. At the time, Britain relied heavily on its railway system to move large sums of cash overnight. Every weekday evening, a Royal Mail train left Glasgow bound for London, carrying money collected from banks across Scotland. By the time the train reached England, it was transporting millions of pounds in used banknotes. Security was considered adequate for the era. The train carried postal workers, guards, and a driver who had made the same journey countless times before. What no one suspected was that a group of experienced criminals had been watching this routine closely. In the early 1960s, Britain was undergoing rapid social and economic change. Cash was still king, and electronic banking was virtually non-existent. Businesses relied heavily on physical money transfers, and the railway system was the backbone of national logistics. This dependence created an illusion of safety. Trains had always delivered. Schedules were trusted, and criminals were assumed to lack the sophistication to exploit such a system. That assumption would soon prove dangerously wrong. The mastermind behind the plan was Bruce Reynolds, a career criminal with a reputation for intelligence and ambition. Reynolds believed that banks were becoming harder to rob, but trains remained predictable. Schedules were fixed. Routes were known. And most importantly, the money moved the same way every night without deviation. For months, Reynolds and his team studied railway operations. They learned how signals worked, where trains slowed down, and how quickly help could arrive in rural areas. They recruited men with specialized skills, drivers, mechanics, and criminals experienced in planning large-scale robberies. The plan was daring but deceptively simple. Instead of attacking a vault, they would stop the train itself. Each member of the gang had a specific role. Some were responsible for logistics, others for transportation, and a few were chosen purely for their ability to remain calm under pressure. The gang even rehearsed parts of the operation in advance, timing how long it would take to move heavy bags and coordinating signals between members. Every minute was calculated. Every movement was planned. The robbery was not an act of impulse, it was a carefully engineered operation. On the night of the robbery, the gang traveled to a remote area near a place called Sears Crossing. Under cover of darkness, they tampered with a railway signal, forcing it to display a red warning light. As expected, the train slowed and came to a halt. When the driver exited the cab to investigate, masked men rushed forward. The driver was quickly overpowered, and control of the train was taken. The gang then uncoupled the front engine from the rest of the train, isolating the carriage that contained the cash. Inside were dozens of heavy mailbags filled with banknotes, money that had already been sorted and bundled, ready for delivery to London. Working methodically, the robbers formed a human chain, passing bag after bag off the train and into waiting vehicles parked nearby. Despite the scale of the operation, the robbery itself lasted less than 30 minutes. In that short window of time, the gang escaped with over £2 million, an amount equivalent to nearly $300 million US today. It was the largest robbery Britain had ever seen. For a brief moment, it appeared flawless. No alarms were triggered. No shots were fired. The gang vanished into the night before authorities fully understood what had happened. News of the robbery spread rapidly. Headlines across Britain and around the world described the crime as unbelievable, daring, and almost cinematic. The public was fascinated. But the criminals made one critical mistake. Instead of immediately disappearing, the gang regrouped at a remote farmhouse where they planned to lie low and divide the money. There, they relaxed, celebrated, and underestimated the determination of the police. When investigators eventually discovered the farmhouse, they found fingerprints, personal belongings, food, clothing, and even a board game left behind. The hideout became a treasure trove of evidence. One by one, the gang members were identified and arrested. Some were captured within weeks. Others attempted to flee abroad, using false identities and stolen passports. Bruce Reynolds managed to evade capture for several years, living under assumed names and moving between countries, before finally being arrested and brought back to Britain. Most of the robbers received long prison sentences. Despite extensive investigations, the majority of the stolen money was never recovered. Its whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. Beyond the arrests and trials, the Great Train Robbery left a lasting mark on British culture. Books were written. Films were produced. The robbers were portrayed as both villains and folk anti-heroes, reflecting society's complicated relationship with crime. For decades, the story has been retold not just as a robbery, but as a symbol of bold ambition, human error, and the thin line between planning and downfall. The impact of the Great Train Robbery went far beyond the money. Security procedures were completely overhauled. Cash transportation methods were redesigned. The era of lightly guarded money trains came to an end. What began as a daring plan ultimately proved a powerful lesson. Even the most carefully executed crime leaves traces behind. And while the Great Train Robbery earned a place in criminal history, it also demonstrated a timeless truth. No matter how perfect a crime may seem, it is never truly foolproof.